So this video is all about little camper, big solar. We're in this little camper right now, all 6 of us, so it's me, Tina, and the 4 kids. We're down here in the Keys, and we're stranded here, by the way. We'll tell you all about that in some upcoming videos. So if you're brand new to this channel, make sure you click subscribe, because you're not going to want to miss some of these adventures. Like one of them is 6 people in a small camper like this. Yeah, I'll fill in a little bit more of the story towards the end of the video, right? But I thought since we're here, and I've been doing some solar videos on the channel, I thought I would shoot a video. You've probably seen my video about the Cougar, the 50 amp solar setup that I did. If you haven't, the video is right up here. I did a 2-year update on that while we were at Quartzsite, and if you missed that one, the video is right up here. Right next door to us, there was a guy that had a huge solar system. If you missed that one, the video is right up here as well. And so, if you've seen my Cougar one, this one is going to look somewhat similar. We use the same type of inverter charger that we do in the Cougar. So we use the GrowWatt 3000 watt inverter charger. Now what I really like about this system is the fact that it is so small, like right there. This is our whole solar setup right there. There's no charge controllers, there's no inverters, nothing like that. Basically, the power from the stand comes in right there, and then we have a wire that runs from there all the way through, and you can see it coming right here. And this is the cable that brings both the incoming and outgoing power. That is 10 gauge wire for up to 30 amps. So this system, everything runs through the GrowWatt, and it works really well that when you unplug from the stand, you basically don't even know that you're unplugged, right? So check this out. They inside, you know how sometimes you unhook your rig and everybody's like, hey, what's going on, right? So if you hear that, the GrowWatt made a sound because I unhooked the shore power. So what it does right away is it automatically switches to the inverter and starts pulling power over this battery. Now this battery right here is a battery that I talked about in my battery video. If you haven't seen that one, click right up here. This is one that I built off of a couple batteries that I bought on Amazon. I kind of messed up and I ordered the wrong batteries. So I tore them all apart and I built them, and I took the cells and I used different BMSs to build this battery. This is a 200 amp hour 24 volt battery. You're talking in 12 volts, this would be a 400 amp hour battery, so that equates to about 4,800 watt hours. So it's much smaller than the battery that we use in the Cougar. This one's 4,800. The one in the Cougar is 15,000 watt hours. So the one in the Cougar is quite a bit taller, right, and weighs quite a bit more. So I like having this one in here because it gives us the perfect amount of power to like run the air conditioner for a couple hours or so, or do pretty much anything inside the camper that we need to, like run the microwave. One thing I like about using the same 24 volts is that I can use batteries from either system if I want to swap them out. So what I did when the boys and I went to Big Bend in the fall, we actually took the batteries from the Cougar, popped it in here, and added them all together. So we had 15,000, we had about 20,000 watt hours of power in this little camper. We had so much battery power that we could run the air conditioner, you know, a long time. But the problem was that since we don't have a lot of space for solar, we couldn't recharge using sun. We would mostly have to rely on plugging in to recharge the batteries. So speaking of the solar array, let's go ahead and jump up top and I'll show you what we have up there. If you've seen our Cougar video, these panels are exactly the same as the ones that we used on Cougar. One of the reasons why I chose these is they were used. It took me a little while to find the perfect size solar panel that you could basically put 3 across. So check those out right there. So we got 3 across on the front, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. These are 185 watts a piece. And so now the one thing that I mentioned in my 2-year update is that these panels, I believe, are kind of on the older side. So the size to watt ratio is probably not as good as I could find these days. So if you look over there to that reflection, they have a solar panel over there that's probably very close to the same size, but it might be 250 watts versus 185. Now the only reason why I use these is because they fit perfectly, and the fact that I bought a whole pallet so that I had like a ton of them left over. So I think I bought 23 solar panels for like $1,100 or something like that. It ended up being about $50 a panel. And so I put 10 of them on the Cougar, and it fit really well. So I really liked the fitment of it there. And so I had these 5, so I chose the next best 5, and I stuck them on this camper right here. And they've actually worked really well. So this is right about 900 and I think 985 as far as wattage goes. And there's been a few times where I've been looking at the GrowWatt, and I actually check the wattage that's coming in, and the sun is like right up above. I was getting 960 watts, right? So I was getting the rated watts from these panels, which I was pretty excited about. So that meant to me like that they were still in good working order. So for you, I would say check out what they have now for new solar panels to see if they have something that has the correct width. We just did a collaboration video with Aaron from Irene Iron Travels, and he showed me his solar up on top, and he mentioned that he was working with, I can't remember the name of the company, but I'll overlay it right here. But basically, he told them, hey guys, if you could make like a 39-inch wide panel, you're going to sell a whole bunch of these. So he actually had one that was right around that 38 or 39 inches, and he mentioned that to me, and I was like, dude, that's exactly what I was looking for before. And so I will make sure to overlay it on here and maybe get you like a link or something to that very specific solar panel. But it was, I think it was smaller than this one here, and it was 250 watts. So if I had to do it over again, I would definitely check in to see what one he used and replace these with one. So imagine I had 1, 2, 3 in the front that were 250 a piece. That'd be 750 right there. That'd be 1,000, and then 1,250. So I could get 1,250 watts on here. So an extra 250 watts or so up here would make a pretty big difference when you're, limited in size. You see this fifth wheel over here. They have much more space. And we just got a fifth wheel too. So here's a little bit of an update. I don't want to share too much, but so the reason why we came to the Keys was to do a video collab with Irene Iron Travels and talk a little bit about the Insty Connect and everything. It was going to be a very quick trip where we were going to go down, we were going to head right back to Tennessee because we are heading out to California. The boys and I, we got a show to go out there. So we actually bought a fifth wheel. We bought it used, and we took it on a trip to Dallas, and it was a disaster. We bought a lemon of a camper, and I'm not going to share much more than that because I have a whole video coming out about that. So that's the reason why we didn't bring that nice big fifth wheel on this trip. We brought the little camper because it was in working order. Did the collab, was heading home, and then our truck broke down. So as I'm making this video, we're basically stranded. They've had our truck now for 4 or 5 days, and nobody has an idea. We need to leave for California on Sunday, and today is Wednesday. So yeah, freaking out a little bit. If you're watching this video and you're like, dude, I want to watch what these guys are up to, we would love if you join us, right? Be sure to click the subscribe button because we just got so much stuff going on right now that it is just kind of crazy. Our traveling is all about the Insty Connect because we want to make sure we get the word out to let people know what the best on-the-road internet system is, right? To save a lot of money, to use it next to trees and all of that stuff, you have to have a good internet system like the Insty Connect. That's really cool. Anyway, got a message. I hope it's the Ford place. It's not the Ford place. Okay, so a few things about the system, and I mentioned this in my 2-year update video, is that we use a grow watt here. And a grow watt is basically a Chinese type inverter charger type system that I believe is mostly used in off-grid situations. It works pretty well here in this camper. I just have one. In the Cougar we have 2 because we have 2 legs of 120 in there. So the one thing that the grow watt does not do compared to the Victron is like the power boost feature. So if we were in a spot that had like, let's say 20 amps right there and we plugged in, the grow watt would see that we're on shore power and use just shore power. Okay, so if we ran things like the air conditioner and a microwave and that, and we'd be pulling more than 20 amps, the grow watt would struggle with it and possibly disconnect us from the service and start pulling from the battery, which in and of itself is not that big of a deal. I do like the fact that the grow watt can basically fail over to battery, but what I really wanted was to be able to supplement 20 amps and be able to pull from the battery. So basically to invert everything from the battery, but then just use the 20 amps to dump back in the battery so that we're only using like, let's say 10 amps of battery power instead of a full 30. So the grow watts can't seem to do that, and I've been all around on the forums and everything, and people said, yeah, I just don't think the grow watts have. Some people have told me that there were other types of Chinese inverter systems similar to the grow watt that could, and I haven't been able to verify that without purchasing one myself. I just don't know if it's possible. Now, in my 2-year video, I mentioned the Victron, and I kind of got mixed thoughts on that. Some people were like, I really like the Victron because it has a lot of these features, and other people were like, I don't know if I like the Victron because it has so much stuff, right? So you have your charger and your, different boxes that you put all around. And if I had all of that in here, I'd be taking up a lot more space. And then they said the management systems on there are kind of a mess. I don't know if I want to be hooking up to Bluetooth and everything. The only thing I do on this system is to check the battery. So I have in my battery video, I talk about the system that we use for the BMS is really cool because it shows you like what's being pulled from the battery and what the battery state is. So right now we're pretty low right now, so I better make sure I plug it back in. Oh, that leads me to another thing that's kind of a negative about the grow watts, which I haven't mentioned before. When you have your grow watt hooked up to shore power for a long time, the grow watt actually uses just battery power to power itself. Okay, so what does that mean? So each one of these inverter chargers have kind of like a overhead draw. I believe it's about 100 watts. 100 watts of just overhead power. And so when you have it hooked up to shore power, it's not going to use any shore power for its overhead. It's going to pull the 100 watts from the battery. It'll basically run the battery all the way down to low voltage mode before it starts charging it up. So that's one of the things I have to check on, is to like, what's the state of charge before we leave? Because if we like all of a sudden leave and I didn't check the state of charge and it was like what it is right now, like pretty low, then that would be kind of a bummer, because I want it to be pretty much full. That's probably the biggest downside of the Grow Watt, and I just forgot to mention that in other videos, just because it usually hasn't been a problem. If it ran it down too far, it would charge it up within a few hours, and then when we would leave somewhere, it'd be somewhere 90 to 95%. So, but this was a good time that I actually checked that, because we've been messing around with figuring out what we're going to do with the truck, basically living day by day here in the Keys, which is not a bad place to get stranded, right? If I can be totally honest. We're actually having a good time down here. Although the camper is pretty small, we would much rather be in our bigger fifth wheel, but it's just how it works, right? One thing I did want to mention about this is that in order to fine tune these things, you have to set the settings on them and make sure the settings are right. And so if I remember in a spot that has maximum of like 20 amps, I have to go in here and make sure that my Grow Watt's not pulling tons and tons of amps to try to charge into the battery. So that's probably where I was last. So let's just check this out real quick. So basically we come in here, utility, what's the max? 10 amps, right? So let me change that. That limited the whole system. I can't believe I forgot to check that. So that's another thing with these Grow Watts. I think 90 is the max here. So what I'm going to do is put this up to max, right? So 90 is max. And then that is the maximum that the Grow Watt is going to pull in for power. So that is shore power, which is input, and the solar, right? So we got these two both coming in here. And so that first number was how much power it was going to dump into the battery. And so now the next one is number 11. 11 is how much the system will pull. Oh, look at that. That's 11 is how much the system will pull from the shore power, and it says 0 amps. So we're going to go in here, and we're going to change this. The max I think we can do is 60 amps. So I think I was messing around with the power settings when we were in Tampa. So now that I made that change, you could actually hear it. Can you hear it in the background? It's actually whirring up like a fan. And so that was the reason why it wasn't charging the batteries like it's supposed to. Now let's see how much power we're dumping in. Yeah, you can definitely hear it now. So look at now, it's dumping 17, 18. This will grow up to around 30 amps of power being dumped in. Because we have the two batteries, it splits in half. So now you can see, man, we're really dumping lots of power in. So these will be charged in no time. But I also watched this right here at 116. If I had bad power and I was dumping this amount of power in here, this would go down to like 105 or something. That's what we were running into in Tampa. We actually had some bad power. And so that's probably why I was messing with these settings. So while it's pretty cool that you have that much functionality with the settings, you just got to make sure that you have your settings set correctly, or else you'll get somewhere like this and your battery will be dead. Like let's say we would have left and pulled over at like a plaza or something and wanted to cook some toast, and it would have drew the battery all the way down and shut off. Oh, that's the last thing, right? So because this Grow Watt gets its overhead power from the battery, if your battery was ever to shut down, like the BMS low voltage shutdown, the Grow Watt would not run. So there always has to be some kind of battery voltage in here for the Grow Watt to even work. And if there is no voltage, then this doesn't work, regardless of if you're plugged into shore power or not. So that is a pretty big bummer for this system in RVs, because if you ever just forget it and you let your battery run all the way down, you got to essentially jump start your system by putting 24 volts on there to turn this on, and then plug it into shore power. Then once this senses shore power, then it can dump power into the battery. So it's kind of this weird thing. This BMS thing has low voltage settings on it, and so basically when one of the cells get to be low voltage, it'll shut the battery down. You can actually come in here and change the configuration down a little bit lower to like basically turn it back on, then it fires everything back up. So there's some tips and tricks out there, but they're kind of more advanced stuff. So this system for sure is more for the advanced user that's comfortable with messing around with their own batteries or settings on the Grow Watt and all of that stuff. So if you're looking for a pretty simple system, from what I understand, the Victrons are probably the most simple and most user-friendly. But that simplicity comes with a price tag, So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this setup. If you have any questions for me, drop them down below. I'll do my best to help. Anyway, thanks so much. hope you're having a great day, and we'll get out of the Keys for sure. We got a place, we got to be in Bakersfield, California next Thursday. So we were going to leave on Sunday. We might be leaving Monday. But anyway, we will talk to you soon. Then we'll be in Tucson the following week. We're pretty excited about all that. Hope you're having a great day. Talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.